My name is Josh Thomas. Right now we're in the west side of Kansas City at a Massive Sound Studios, mixing a live recording of a set that one of my bands played a few weeks ago with Cloud Nothings at Record Bar. The band's RxGhost. And right now Paul's in there mixing the drums. I think he's tweaking EQ on drums a lot, trying to get that all settled.
More than satisfied with the people who run our lives. More than satisfied with the people who run our lives. And I know there were candles, and I know floating in water.
Yes, probably since I was like 13 or 14. I was right around that age whenever Nirvana first came out, and like the 90s started really, putting like Michael Bolton off the radio and everything else. And it also felt like too, like guitar before that was so hard to play. There was like a huge barrier to entry on playing music in general and being in a band. And then once like Nirvana and all these other bands were out playing like super melodic but like simple things, it was just, I immediately was like, can I get a guitar, Dad? When I'm writing, I almost never have any kind of result in mind. I'm just like playing random different patterns on different instruments. And then when something finally clicks, then I just like make note of that and write it down. And that becomes a part of something, and then when you have all these parts together, it almost like is one of those people trying to solve a serial killer murder, with like all the stuff on the wall and all the arrows everywhere, and I have like massive sheets of paper and dry erase boards full of like parts, and I rank them all. This one's an 8 out of 10, it kind of has a weird kind of feel. This one's a 9 out of 10, and it's like really fast and catchy, and then I just kind of like merge things together to kind of like make the song sometimes. That way the verses and choruses don't feel like they're part of the same song. They kind of like are a little bit more maybe exciting and jarring because they're weren't written at the same time even. Some things are like years apart. Like the chorus of Candles was written like years after the verse part.
With the people who run our lives, and I know there were candles, and I know floating in water. I was burning over nothing.
When you think of the term psychedelic, what comes to mind for you?
Empathy and openness. Also there's some gravity to it. I take it pretty seriously. Like I'll fast beforehand.
You used to use psychedelics regularly or take psychedelics regularly?
Yeah, for sure.
What was that like?
I mean, it was pretty life-changing. Like I know that the way I treated people was different, after years of that. The way that I use language was different. The way I also was less convinced that the future and past really, are things, and it kind of fades off. Like every time you do it and you're done with it, you're doing it, and all of a sudden you write down something like everything is blue and that's the entire secret to life. And later you look at it and you're like, I'm not quite sure that's the answer to everything. But every time you do it, you kind of come back with something. If you do it in a way where you're trying to get some kind of thing out of it, I think you have to really set intentions and set a place to do it, Like I think that just taking things like that and going to parties around random people isn't always a really good look, or even the best use for it,
Tell me about the first time that you tried something psychedelic.
I was given some ecstasy for free by some friends of mine when I was a senior in high school probably, and it was not probably great. It seemed really speedy. I just got super nervous. I didn't want to talk to anybody or be around people. I basically just laid in my friend's bed, hiding at a party for 2 hours while I stared at the ceiling. So not a great start probably.
And then that inspired you to go out and try it again?
Well, not that particular kind of ecstasy, no. So, I mean, it took a minute to get into it, yeah. But I think the middle part of college especially, for a while, I had like a long beard and long hair, and I was walking around campus in a robe, and people were calling me Jesus and stuff. I kind of, it went a little too far probably, but
That was related to your experiences with psychedelics, the Jesus period?
yeah, for sure. I think most people's Jesus period's related to psychedelics probably, or schizophrenia, or a combination of both, No, I definitely probably had some psychedelically enhanced megalomania happening for a while, where I was convinced, because my name, Joshua Marcus Thomas, 3 6s, 666, and like the book of the Gospel of Thomas is like possibly the truest sayings of Jesus kind of stuff, But like all this stuff tied into everything, even like Joshua and Yeshua and Jesus, the way it tied into stuff. I was pretty convinced for a while I was supposed to do something pretty important in my life. Kind of like that's part of the depression though too that came out of the whole thing, was feeling like I hadn't done enough, and that I'd expected a lot out of myself, and I was doing a lot of stuff, but at the same time it never really felt like it was, culturally irrelevant in enough of a way, which kind of definitely led to quite a bit of like depression, which led to, and also playing in a band, you get fed alcohol all the time. So I had definitely like a super alcoholic phase, ended up going to rehab for a while. But yeah, part of the depression though did come from a little bit of like that kind of the psychedelic hangover of feeling like I was put into something really important, I really felt like I had like a important purpose and mission kind of situation going on. And then as I got older, like nothing really played out super important, at least not in my head. I'm sure for some people, me being a part of their life or doing certain things or things I was involved with were like important for them. And it was important for me too, but it never felt like it was like enough, I think maybe that is possibly a side effect too of psychedelics almost, is like this like massive importance that can be put on things, and yourself, and the pressure you can put on yourself to do important things whenever you are in these certain states where you're like, your serotonin levels are through the roof. I think it's important to have those though. It's almost like, people that go on adventures, like, to different destinations, you always come back with something else. I'm glad that I did all the things that I did. I am where I am now because of it. And I think I'm in a pretty good spot now, like post-rehab, post-divorce, post-everything else, I'm actually pretty happy right now. I'm just like filling my entire like life with just as much creativity as possible. Glad we're at a spot culturally where mental health is almost on the same level as physical health. I feel like, culturally we've ignored people's insides because they're harder to deal with. It's easy to treat someone's broken arm. It's a lot harder to figure out why we feel the way we feel about stuff. I think it's probably like the best time in human history for like, people's emotions. Even though like politically the entire world is insane right now and everyone's angry about everything all the time. It also feels like people are at least more aware that mental health matters, on the same way physical health does.